Thank you for giving me the opportunity today to share with you an exciting project that I'm working on called the NN Cannery History Project. The NN Cannery History Project is a grassroots public history endeavor that through the historical lens of work connects Bristol Bay to the world. For those who don't know me, my name is Katherine Johnson Ringsmith. I teach history at the University of Alaska Anchorage and run a public history consulting business called Tundra Vision. Besides this being a professional venture, the NN Cannery History Project is very personal to me. You see, I am a fish slimer. I worked my way through school sliming fish, and my father, Gary Johnson, ran the NN Cannery, and he worked at the cannery for over 30 years. When he retired in 1996, he represented the last of the working APA superintendents. The idea for the project gained momentum at a history conference in Cordova when word spread that Trident Seafoods had decided to permanently close the cannery at South Naknek. Now this came as stunning news for a handful of us, particularly my friend Bob King, who ran the KDLG newsroom and was the voice on fishing boats and in cannery rooms for decades. The cannery connected Bristol Bay to an extensive community and global web, noted Bob. And to Bob and all of us, its closure marked the end of an era. So Bob and I put together a team that included cannery experts, Alaska historians, curators, artists, and filmmakers from Juneau to Naknek, and we called ourselves the NN Cannery History Project. And together, we created a network of well-established public and private partners, include the Alaska Association for Historic Preservation, Trident Seafoods, the National Park Service, the State Historic Preservation Office, the University of Alaska Fairbanks, the acclaimed digital storytelling consulting business Sea Stories, and Bristol Bay Heritage Land Trust, and of course, the Alaska State Museum in Juneau. All total, we have raised nearly $180,000 secured through individual donations, a grant from the National Endowment of Humanities, and 2 NPS grants, an Underrepresented Communities Grant and a Maritime National Heritage Grant. To raise awareness for the project, thanks to Larice, we have created an interactive website. We have presence on Facebook. Media coverage of the project includes articles in Alaska Magazine, Pacific Fishing, Point Roberts Press. We've had stories on KDLG, KSKA, KTOO, KIMO, and most recently on KTVA's news show Frontiers. Team participants have presented at Anchorage Rotary, Bristol Bay Fish Expo, Bristol Bay Chamber of Commerce, Fishtival, the Bear Trail Lodge, and most recently, Explore.org. In September, we are going to have an article in Raven's In Flight magazine, Alaska Spirit. We've published brochures that help get our message out Alaska. And what is our mission? Well, we want to preserve the history of this 128-year-old cannery at South Naknek. And what does that mean exactly? Well, it means we aren't going to preserve the actual buildings. That would take a lot more than $180,000. But what we will do is extract the history reflected in the work, the people, and buildings themselves, and share that history through 4 separate but interconnected objectives. It also means that the community will be able to use the completed project objectives as a baseline or as leverage to plan for future history-related initiatives. So what are those objectives? Well, number 1, we want to nominate the NN Cannery to the National Register of Historic Places as a National Maritime Site. So the nomination work has been funded already through a maritime grant, and this designation will associate the cannery experience at South Naknek with the nation's most significant maritime. So Mystic Seaport, New Bedford Whaling Museum, the Bishop Museum in Hawaii, Cannery Row in Monterey, and of course the San Francisco Maritime Historic Park are sites that maritime designated places. Moreover, the National Register's potential grants us technical support from the regional office in Anchorage and us with numerous opportunities to share Bristol Bay's story with Katmai's 30,000 plus seasonal visitors. So the second thing we want to do is to develop a digital storytelling workshop for young people going to school at the Bristol Bay School District. So the objective, which is also funded by the Underrepresented Communities Grant and in partnership with the critically acclaimed program Sea Stories, we're going to continue the local tradition of caretaker, but instead of Cannery caretakers, the storytelling program will provide young people with the skills, responsibility, and confidence to accurately represent people who can no longer speak for themselves, to become caretakers of Cannery history and curators of Cannery people's stories. In addition to students, the broader community will be actively engaged, and specifically, we will be working directly with the Bristol Bay School District and the Martin Munson Regional Library. The project can open opportunities in terms of internships, educational and entrepreneurial development, and provide professional skills that could lead to lasting. The team will also work with a community advisory group to ensure the ethical gathering of stories, supply wisdom, and foster connections between young people and Bristol Bay's elders and seniors through the lens of Cannery work. So number 3 on the list is to collect oral histories of former cannery workers for publication on the University of Alaska Fairbanks's Project Jukebox. So this is also funded by the Maritime Grant. The project will support 10 interviews with former cannery people who can best speak to the work activities conducted in 10 identified workspaces throughout the cannery. By partnering with UAF, we will be making the interviews available to researchers from around the world. Additionally, the information will frame a digital story map, which will serve as a type of virtual walking tour through the cannery that can lend itself to actual tourism here in Naknek and will be incorporated into digital content for the Mug Up exhibition. So number 4 on the list is the exhibit. We want to produce a world-class museum exhibition that will share the narratives of Cannery people with everyone from Alaska residents to visitors from around the world. Funded by an NEH grant, the Mug Up exhibition will be curated by the NN Cannery team, and it will be installed by the State Museum in Juneau in its 3,000-foot temporary exhibit space. We're aiming at summer-fall 2021 as an opening. The hope is that we will raise funds for the exhibit to travel throughout Alaska, the Pacific Northwest, down to California, and to maritime sites across the nation. We are also thinking about working with other countries, places like China, the Philippines, Mexico, and certainly beyond, to the countries that connect the cannery to the world. This will be a community-curated exhibit, which in addition to shedding light on history's forgotten workers, will create a humanities community around the cannery right here in Bristol Bay. Furthermore, Larice Eagley has come on to serve as our object curator, media specialist, and the facilitator for the project right there in the local community. We're also in the process of raising funds to commission Bristol Bay artist Andrew Abayo to produce a model of the NN Cannery, which will serve as the centerpiece for the Mug Up exhibit. Finally, the NN Cannery History Project team and our professional network can assist the Bristol Bay Borough's Museum to seek additional funding provide curatorial and collections expertise, and help bolster exhibit space so that the Bristol Bay Museum might serve as a permanent home for the N.A. Cannery History Project collection and the Mug-Up exhibition when completed, to ensure the long-standing tradition of industry. In other words, we want to create a locally run, sustainable history program that exists long after the N.N. Cannery History Project ends. Today, the N.N. Cannery History Project team is seeking support from the Bristol Bay Borough Assembly. We are asking that this body give its official stamp of approval to the project, to ensure guidance and coordination with facilities such as the library, the school, and the museum, and to really ensure the involvement of the community. We would certainly hope that you could provide feedback and suggestions on how the community might leverage other humanity projects using the N.N. Cannery History Project and the maritime designation as a foundation, so that we can essentially hand it over to local control when the project is done. And finally, we are asking that the Assembly help support the project by providing $11,000 to supplement the NPS National Maritime Heritage Grant and the interviews that are occurring. This would help match the grant, which is supporting that activity. So why should you support the N.N. Cannery History Project? Well, we can't do it without local input and support. And I think the answer also lies in the fish themselves. Salmon feed Bristol Bay's ecosystems, cultural traditions, our 4-count soul-fueling rhythms, our historic and current commercial markets, and don't forget our furry fishermen. If lined up end to end, the amount of salmon that return to Bristol Bay each year would extend from San Francisco to New York City and back again to Phoenix, Arizona. We're talking about a lot of fish here. And in a world facing extraordinary environmental challenges, Bristol Bay is an environmental fish story that we actually got right. South Naknek resident Mary Jane Nielsen tells how her family's matriarch, Pelagia Malganek, would consume small amounts of salmon, rich soil of Kittavik, as to reconnect with the place that gave both the elder and the red salmon life. Indeed, salmon are not just food. Salmon, as one fish writer wrote, was energy. It wasn't just energy in our sense of BTUs or calories, but what William Blake meant when he said that energy is eternal delight. Historically speaking, the canned salmon industry shaped Alaska's road to statehood and remains our #1 employer. Transported American capitalism northward, and its historical significance extends far beyond putting fish into a can. But the most important reason why this body should support this project is the lesson we all take away from cannery work. Cannery work was not menial. Individuals working together in a cooperative effort underscores a synergy in which the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. Our goal is for Bristol Bay youth to be equally proud of a mother who cleans fish as a father who catches them. Work is a universal principle that transcends the historically unfamiliar and connects the little-known cannery experience to knowledge and values shared by people of Katmai, California, China, or visitors from Kansas. Whether originating from Japan, the Philippines, or simply upriver, cannery people found dignity through their laborious interactions and left a mark on Alaska history and culture. As some of you may recall, Dad was in a boating accident in 1995. He suffered severe head and body injuries. He recovered at Seattle's Harborview Hospital for many months, and day after day, people from Bristol Bay visited him and shared with me their many fish stories of the cannery. And these stories not only made me want to become a historian, but they gave me back my dad. As you can see, Dad still prominently hangs on his office wall the letter of appreciation this assembly granted him in honor of his unexpected retirement over 20 years ago. Dad continues to be so proud of the people he worked with and the many friendships he fostered in his time at South Naknek. Although this presentation and additional package lays out multiple goals and objectives for the Anna Cannery History Project, ultimately for me, its primary purpose is to give back to a community that gave my family everything. Indeed, it is a rare opportunity in which we historians will collect the raw material, the recorded interviews, the photos, and the objects, and to develop it into a world-class exhibition called Mug that will present to the public an introspective, unique, and colorful depiction of Cannery people's lifeway and history. To do as John Steinbeck once wrote, to open the page and let the stories crawl in by themselves. Thank you very much. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to contact me, contact our object curator, Larisse Eagley. You can visit our website, and what also is on this presentation are some historic videos and an example of some of the work that the Park Service is doing to help us preserve the history of this cannery virtually. Thank you very much, and I appreciate your time.